You're not going anywhere. All right. Hey everyone, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss and internet shitlords, and here I am coming to you live. Um, I was not expecting to come to you live or to do a video at all today, but something happened that I felt like, well, I just have to do a video about this right now. So, if you haven't watched my video from yesterday, which is the one about Matt Mercer and the Mercer effect, you should go and watch that video as soon as you can. All right, because in that video I explain what is the Mercer effect and why it matters. So uh, basically, there's this show, Critical Role. Matt Mercer is kind of the executive producer of this show. It's like a D&D themed reality TV show, and it creates a very unrealistic perspective of what playing D&D is like. And so you get a bunch of newbies that'll come along, and they will want, what we've been calling the Mercer effect is that they expect their gaming experience of actually playing real D&D to be like the experience that they've seen people have in on Critical Role, except they don't seem to understand that Critical Role is fake. Okay. So I've been thinking, I did this video where I condemned Matt Mercer for not just admitting that his show is ersatz, right? It's an improv theater act with elements, appearing to be like D&D. And he was would just be willing to admit that people would be able to deal with the Mercer effect. But, I'd been thinking about trying to explain exactly what the analogy is like. Because, of course, it's not that, oh, there's my cat. It's not that there isn't D&D play going on in Critical Role. You watch the show, they're playing D&D, and it's not that it's all completely pre-scripted either, right? Because it's not that, they're not just following a script, right? But it is very clearly, to anyone who knows D&D, it's also not just D&D being played, right? It's being done in a very, very unusual way that seems kind of fake, and that's because it's full of paid actors who are there for the job, who are doing this thing. It has a bunch of techniques from improv theater. The reactions of the players are exaggerated. The DM's activity is done in a different way, pandering for the camera, basically. They're shooting at the angles for the camera. And I was trying to think of an analogy of what was most adequate, of a representation of this. And, one of the first things that had come to mind was something like the difference between, real wrestling, like as in Olympic wrestling, and pro wrestling, right? But I don't think that's the best example, really, because it's not quite that, because those are basically just two different. Pro wrestling, like WWE wrestling, is obviously not real, and so in that sense, it's right. But it is something that they're doing really athletically, but it's not real as in that they know who's going to win before they go in there, right? But I'm not sure that that's exactly the case in Mercer's game, so I wasn't sure if that was just the perfect analogy. And then I'd also thought about the difference between watching a realistic martial arts movie about a karate tournament, like the Karate Kid, right, or something like that, versus actually doing martial arts, right? If a kid goes to a martial arts dojo expecting that he's going to have a training montage to the sound of Eye of the Tiger, and in 5 minutes he's going to be a karate master. That's not how it's going to go. And if he's expecting martial arts tournament to be full of tension and drama, like in in the Karate Kid, it's not going to go like that, right? But again, that's kind of not quite the same, because one is clearly fiction and the other one isn't, right? But then in yesterday's video, which was very, very well received, you'll note that in a day it got more views than I have subscribers. So that's pretty damn good. I hope that some of you who viewed it become subscribers if you hadn't done so already. And anyway, in that video, in the comments, someone said something just offhand. He's saying, so you're saying that it's kind of like porn. And I had to do this video because yes, that's exactly right. Critical Role, with regards to playing D&D in your normal group, is like porn versus normal sex, right? That's exactly the analogy there, right? before I continue explaining this, I want to comment that I'm not saying that I have anything against porn, right? I'm definitely, porn and sex work friendly. I have no problem with any of that. I'm not a Christian conservative. I'm not a, I'm on the right wing, but I'm not a social conservative. And I think that anybody should have the right to do what they want to as long as there's no coercion. Okay. So I'm not saying any of this to try to malign porn. Notice that I'm not particularly worried about maligning Critical Role. But the thing here is in porn, I mean, obviously, anyone who's watched porn and has had sex knows that a porn, video is not like having sex for real. They're not the same experience. They're completely different, right? Um, Pornography is created largely as masturbatory aids and is not meant to be a reflection of what an actual sexual experience is, whether you're talking about, making love with your wife of 30 years or whether you're talking about hooking up at a frat party. In no case will it look like porn, right? Oh, hey, we got someone on the comments just said they got their copy of Lion and Dragon today. That's awesome. So, I'm glad to hear that. Definitely pick up Lion and Dragon, medieval authentic OSR role playing by the RPG Pundit. It's a old school variant of the D&D rules that is focused on medieval authenticity and realism, historical realism and stuff like that. So it's if you want to play an actual, in a fantasy version, obviously, like that where the idea of magic in that period as it was, but it really works. But it is the magical system that people in the Middle Ages thought was how magic worked, and with all the violence, the monotheism, the strict social classes, all the stuff that has been used to a small degree in Game of Thrones to make it seem kind of cool. You can do that with the War of the Roses, which is also where Dark Albion comes in. So this commercial break out of the way, you've got pornography, right? And pornography is essentially an improv show, but it is something that there's also real sexual activity going on, right? So some people have been claiming when I was saying that Critical Role is just improv theater, that they were saying, well, that that's not true because they're really playing D&D, man. Yeah, they are really playing D&D in the same sense that people in a porn film are really having sex, right? That doesn't change the fact that it's not really about the sex, right? They're professionals doing a job there that are engaging in a type of sexual activity that is going to, I'm not going to comment on whether or not it's fulfilling for them to do it, but it's not clearly about the purpose for which normally you would be having sexual activity, right? And so it's something where you're having a semi-scripted, mostly improvised performance of this act, whether the act be sex or whether the act be playing D&D, done by actors who might have certain good qualities but also are now never going to win an Oscar, right? Like, let's face it, the people doing Critical Role right now are people that apparently can't get steady work for Netflix, right? Because if they could, they would be doing that, right? So it's none of them are good. You're not going to have De Niro doing Critical Role there. None of them are going to be part of the Royal Shakespeare Company or something like that. But just like your average porn actor or actress is not going to be a spectacularly good actor or actress. They're going to have other qualities that have made them viable for being there. And it's the way that it is scripted is because there is a certain scripting that's happening, but it's kind of an overview scripting, right? And that's very similar in both many porn productions and Critical Role, right? It's not very usual. I mean, I'm sure there are some porn productions that have like detailed scripts and continuity notes and all that stuff. I'm not gonna underestimate the ability of the porn industry to be creative, because they're certainly creative, right? But basically, the typical porn script is not like the director says, okay, so you're the sexy cheerleader and you're the pizza delivery boy and you're going to knock on the door here and then she's going to let you in and kind of seduce you. And then there's going to be some sucking and then you're gonna have some doggy style, and then you're gonna finish on her tits. Right? That's it, right? That's the script, right? And they all know how to do this because they've done it hundreds of times before. They've been trained in, the basics of how to act in a porn film, right? And in Critical Role, you have a bunch of these actors who are clearly, professional actors. They're trained in voice acting, so they're very good with enunciation and things like that. They're good with expression, and they've done improv theater techniques a lot, right? So they know how to do this. They know how to fake being excited, just like a porn actress knows how to fake an orgasm, right? They know how to fake being involved in the drama, right? Or not even to fake it, but to exaggerate it, right? Like, I think it's certainly possible that in a porn film you got porn actors experiencing degrees of pleasure, but what they want to do is go over the top with that and be exaggerated in how much pleasure they're getting, from whatever act they're doing in the porn film, right? Well, in Critical Role, maybe some of the people at the show at certain times, maybe even the majority of times, are having fun doing it, right? I would hope they're having fun doing it, but they're also really exaggerating the amount of fun that they're having, right? And if they're afraid for their character, they exaggerate how afraid they are for their character. And the DM exaggerates the emphasis of certain parts of the DMing experience where he's pandering to the camera instead of playing direct to the players, right? He's not DMing to the players, he's DMing to the camera, right? And that's, in all of those respects, Critical Role is to D&D like what, like porn is, right? Like what a porn video is to sex, right? And in terms of the effect that Critical Role has had on newbies, it's very similar to the effect that people are concerned porn videos have on virgins, right? Maybe especially young virgins, right? That they watch a porn video, they don't have the experience to be able to say, okay, no, real sex is nothing like this. And so they think that this is what their sexual activity has to be like, right? And then you get, stuff like people imitating stuff from, online porn in high schools or stuff like that, right? And this causes scandal, and of course it shows up on Fox News or whatever, and people are outraged at this, and feminists are outraged at this, and everybody else is outraged at this, right? But really, it's just because these dumb kids, they don't know that that's not actually how sex works, because they've never done it until then, right? And so their only experience, their only context, the only visual example they've had of it is the readily available pornography on the internet, right? You have a bunch of players, newbie players, people who think they want to get into D&D, right? A lot of, quite a bit like maybe some, horny teenage boys really want to have sex because they imagine it's going to be like, Mia Khalifa giving them a tit job or something, right? So like that's what they're hoping it's gonna be like, right? Except that Susie, the cheerleader, the real one, not the one that's answering the pizza boys, the knocking on the door, she's not really gonna be into that, right? She's a nice Methodist girl, and she's not really, she's not looking for him to blow his wad in her face, right? So this is going to cause some conflict and friction, right? And similarly, in D&D, you've got a bunch of newbies who have seen Critical Role, and they think that a gaming session is going to be like Critical Role in the exact same sense that a kid who's watched a lot of porn and hasn't actually had sex thinks sex is going to look like a porn film. And it's not, right? It's going to be a different thing. And having that expectation to a certain degree, well, it'll definitely, I can tell you one thing is that it'll definitely make the experience itself a lot more awkward, right? Because people will have those expectations, and that will avoid the natural, goings on of things that would otherwise happen. And I think, I could also say that it will have a tendency to harm the experience, right? Because there is this pressure and this idea and this notion that this is the way it has to be. So when people are talking about the negative effects of, pornography on our youth, I'm not one to go into that kind of hysterical hand waving of think about the children or whatever, right? But you can't deny that because of a lack of education or because of a lack of context, because the parents screwed up in not explaining the difference, because the kid was so afraid of mom or dad catching him looking at the at Pornhub, that he never had the talk with his dad or something. His dad could have told him, look, kid, I don't care what you do, but this is not reality. This isn't what it really looks like, right? And likewise, you have all these kids who are watching Critical Role, and they're going to come in with these expectations and this pressure and this idea, these demands of the other participants of their gaming group, that their D&D experience has to look like Critical Role, and they don't understand that Critical Role is basically just porn. Right? It's just role playing smut that's fake and not real. Someone says, "Have you killed Catboy yet?" No, Catboy is alive and well, and now he has a potato generating dagger. So I'm afraid that his power only grows by the day. Someone said that they would want to see a porn version of D&D. I don't think I would. Thank you. I mean, okay, yeah, D&D with porn stars, yeah, maybe, but like, there's nothing to be gained from that. Come on, okay, you can have whatever taste you like, right? For me, those things are not things that I'm really looking to mix, right? That wasn't the point. The point is that this is a metaphor. I'm talking about how the experience of Critical Role is similar to the experience of someone watching a porn version instead of real sex, right? Critical Role involves role-playing activities, but it's not real role-playing, right? And just like I said, okay, I'm sure that there are some players, and Matt Mercer himself, probably they are mostly enjoying what they're doing. I'm not pretending that they're, that it's just, it's joyless and their souls are broken on the inside. I mean, I can't say for sure because I don't know them all that well, but I'm imagining that most of the time they're having a nice time. But they can't really tell you if they're not, right? They can't just pretend to be uninterested in playing that day, right? They can't just, be screwing around on their phones because, they really just aren't into what's happening in the party right now. They have to pretend like everything that's going on is super fantastic and, well, let's get into it. Or occasionally, maybe if the scene demands that the players act like they're bored about things, well, then they'll act bored, right? But there's a lack of genuine emotion going on there. An exaggeration of certain emotions, and certain other genuine emotions are basically forbidden there, much like, again, in a porn film. So, that's the best metaphor I could have, envisioned for my explanation of what is the problem of the Mercer effect, the problem of Critical Role, how that affects the D&D hobby. And I mean, I'm not going to suggest solutions or something like that, right? I'm not saying that we should, ban Critical Role or something like that. But what I'm saying is that ideally we should promote and push the awareness of the fact that Critical Role is not like a real D&D session, right? Matt Mercer refuses to admit that. He refuses to say that in those words, right? He refuses to say why it's not. He might say, oh, well, we're better than other regular D&D sessions. You can't expect it to be like that, right? Or, every session is unique and you shouldn't want your session to be like ours. You should want it to be like yours, right? But I mean, this is like if the porn actress was just pretending, like as though that was really her house and she's really a cheerleader, a 32-year-old cheerleader, and that pizza boy really, was a real pizza boy, right? No, you could just say, it's fake. We're doing it for money, right? We're doing it for money. It's improv theater. We're doing a kind of game, but it's never going to be like your normal game because this isn't normal D&D. And if he said that, then we'd get somewhere, right? And if he refuses to say that, then the rest of us have to say that, right? It's up to us to make it clear to newbies that Critical Role is not how D&D actually goes, right? D&D actually, has a whole other style of experience, and you may like it. If you like Critical Role, there's a good chance you're going to like D&D, just like if you're old enough to like porn, you're probably going to like having sex, right? But they're not the same. They're not the same experience, right? And the things you see happening on the show are not what it's going to be like in real life. All right? So, yeah, I think that's basically the message I wanted to send today, and I'm not gonna linger anymore here. But if you want me to keep making more videos, then please feel free to support me on Patreon if you're still on Patreon. I will still be on Patreon until there's a viable alternative. But if you don't like Patreon, you can go to my blog and there's a PayPal button on the blog. The links are going to be in the description below. Or you could just purchase a book like Lion and Dragon or Dark Albion, or you could purchase one of my RPG Pundit Presents PDF products in that series, which we're now up to 61 fantastic different little mini supplements on topics of medieval authentic D&D play or gonzo, play like from in the style of Dungeon Crawl Classics and stuff like that. So these are supplements that you can use in just about any OSR game, and I hope that you'll check them out and buy a few that sound interesting to you. There's adventures, there's source books, there's historical books, there's new magic systems, items, lists of items, all sorts of stuff. So take a look at those. But most importantly, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Okay? Hit the notification bell. And yeah, man, Gonzo D&D, like Dungeon Crawl Classics, right? Anyway, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video. Share this video so people can see and can understand exactly what the difference is and why Critical Role can't be taken seriously as mainstream D&D. It can still be enjoyed. You can still love watching it all the time if you want to. You can watch it 5 or 6 times a day if that's what you're into. And if you'd rather just watch it 5 or 6 times a day than actually go out and find a gaming group, I'm not going to judge you. Maybe someone else will, but I'm not. Okay? You can do that if that's what you want to do. All right? But don't think that that's the same as playing D&D. I guess I'll leave it on that note. Again, share it everywhere. Thank you very much for listening. And currently smoking Moretti Rhodesian plus Barking Dog.